Join me on a quest for some pine cones. The mission today is some low elevation tamarack. And if you know me, I'm obsessed with it. This is a beautiful spot. It's just difficult to get to. So, we're going to try our best today. And along the quest, I'd like to, if I can, talk about what seed getting is and where we're at with getting seed. All right, so the mission today, there's a nub out there. I don't know if you can see that. My goal is to get up on the nub, and then I'm going to try and get up to like a little over 3,000 feet and just cut across the top and look down. See what we can see. Over there is a bunch of really old tamarack, really old western larch. And if you probably can't tell from here, but it's all survived a forest fire. You know, the trees have 30-foot flame marks up the bowl. So they're big trees that survived big fire. But they have really great looking canopies, and they're in the best spot they can be, which is low. As low as you can go, all right? So, we're going to get at it. Thank you for joining me. I do not officially represent the Forest Service in any way. I'm merely a person sharing my experience. Here we go. We have a problem. The problem is there's not enough seeds for trees. Not really enough for what we're cutting timber harvest wise, and if there's a big fire, definitely not enough then. And the reality is that there's more forest fires, more intense forest fires than ever. So there's a humongous demand for reforestation. And I think that will trend in a way that increases. So, how do we get more seed? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm going to provide you with a link to a paper that talks about it from an upper level perspective. It looks at it, you know, multi-agency. It talks about the state. It talks about the Forest Service. It talks about private. And it goes really into depth into the different parts of it. And, you know, I'm going to provide you that paper, read it, check it out. It's very important. And then I'm going to kind of give you sort of the insider's perspective, you know, what I go through with the agency that I work for. So, here we go. It's actually a really nice trail so far, I'm thankful. We'll see what it looks like when we get in the bottom. Where we're at right now on the chain is the part where the forester tries to get the seed, whether that be we collect it ourselves within the institution or we contract it out. This is the bit that you're getting, and there's so much more to the chain of reforestation. Please look at the paper. All right, so here we are, right? I'm trying to find the seed. The time horizon that I have to find the seed is incredibly short. You know, last year it was 2 months. This year it was 1 month, basically, from when the snow melts to when I need to submit documents. And what is required of those documents can be extensive. And what it demands of me is to just cover a shitload of ground with not a lot of people, okay? The first step is you gotta like just broadly sample, drive around everywhere and find, okay, here's a spot where I saw 5 trees carrying medium heavy. Down this road here, there's another spot, medium heavy. This one over here is low, we don't need to go back there. Kind of getting like a very coarse overview of what's out, right? Because trees can flower, you know, it's highly variable across the landscape. So you got to do your broad scale thing, and then once you find the good spots, you need to go back and do a very fine scale thing where you have like a bunch of people chain out and walk, sample a tree, walk, and, you know, cover, you know, not a ton of ground, but it's detailed, right? And realistically, from that data, you should be able to estimate bushels. okay? And again, that takes a lot of people. You know, ideally for like a fine scale cone recon, you want to have at least like, you know, 5 groups of 2 people, 10 people total. Right now, I've got myself, Sherry, Gordon, who's fixing to retire, and we have a seasonal. So it would require us to ask people to come. And again, there's a lot to cram into a month. Okay, so we get the fine scale thing done. Then you need climbers to come and get up the tree and confirm that there's seeds in the cone, because just because you have cone doesn't mean that there's seeds in there. Learn that, you know? So, ooh, pretty stream. So, because of where I'm at, there's so few climbers. So to get another climber out here to go check to see if there's seed, I'd have to call somebody from far away, have them come out here, you know, and they're taking time away from their actual duty, right? Because their job isn't to come check my cones. They have their own other job. And so what it takes to put together a cone contract is immense. The pressure on the forestry. We have a lot of ground to cover with very few people. And not a lot of time, because while the cone getting is getting, we also have other contracts that could begin. I have reached the bottom, and the trail has dissipated. I didn't anticipate this creek being as big as it is. I thought it was going to be more like the last one. So, trying to find a way to cross. I have found the bridge. I will say though, if I find seed in here, I'm gonna need a cowboy to get me in here. So I might be in the market for a cowboy. 2 days work. Let me know. There's a lot of critters that walk across this. There might be one in there. I'm at the nub, the bottom of the nub. There's already a whole hillside of larch. I couldn't be happier. I lost the sun though, that's very important, but we'll make it work. So, I don't have tools necessary to do the job. I don't have my own climbing gear, or I don't have climbing gear that is not personal gear that I purchased. You know, all the optics I use are my own. We don't have the people to cover the ground. We have an incredible time horizon to overcome, and it's possible you can submit all the stuff, and because there are so few contract climbers, that it's possible you could submit all your documents and nobody will even open the paperwork and your contract will be ignored. That has happened before, can confirm, okay? You know, and how many times can you go through that before you're like, screw it, I quit? You know, how many times can a person do that? And sometimes I do think about quitting. I'm like, yeah, why don't I just go be a contract climber? You know, cone collectors can make $500 to $800 a day, depending on your climbing proficiency and how many cones there are. You know, and I don't make $500 a day now. Definitely not. A lot less. But, you know, that's seasonal work, and yeah, it's seasonal. I mean, I could be a bartender in the winter. I don't know. I toy with it. Trust me. Okay, so we just don't have enough climbers. That's one of the harsh realities of this process, or the chain. And one of the things that I want to work on is sort of strengthening what is the tree climber portion of the chain. You know, I know how to climb. I'm not an expert, but I think that I could teach people how to get up a tree, and then I can help people come into contact with other people who can hire them. So that's one of the things I'm working on, but there ain't enough climbers. That's another huge part of this. It takes a really smart, dumb person to want to climb up a tree and get pine cones. I think I should also cover why I am here, where I am in this moment. The big money stuff is at the low elevations. You know, the paper talks about assisted migration. You know, it's this concept that stuff that's at a lower elevation is adapted to warmer temperatures. And as the climate warms, we're going to have to move that seed source upwards. I got a butterfly on my hand. Hell yeah, dude. It's a butterfly day. Anyways, the idea is that you're going to move the lower elevation seed higher. And so this in particular, larch is a good species to be looking at. So is ponderosa pine, and then this is as low as you can go. So that's what we're doing here. And I'm working on a collective, a passive collection. You know, because this is not something that the Forest Service or, you know, you can't contract collect this. That's out of the question. It's just too much to get into here. You know, but I think that I can put up, you know, I have a passive catch method that I'm working on. I'll let you know if it works. And I think you could put up a whole bunch, you know, before they flare. And you can be gone when they do flare. And then come back and collect it all later. And then ideally, what you would want to do is take the scion from these trees and create an orchard out of it. But I'm working on that. I have no place to put the scion. I need the roots. We'll see how that goes. So that's why we're here, man. Welcome. Thanks for coming. What I mean when I'm referencing scion is one of the cool things about trees is if you can take, you know, the new growth at the very top third of the tree, you can take that growth and graft it onto another tree. It's called the rootstock. And then that tree will think that it's still, you know, the 100-year-old tree on the landscape, and it will produce cone. You know, whereas younger trees, it's generally not until maybe like, you know, 15, 20 years in. So the idea is to come collect cone from the trees that you can run tests on to look for things that might be advantageous for a warming climate. And then you have the scion stored in an orchard. That's what we're going for here. It's just it's a hell of a quest, my friends. So this is a beautiful place. I made it to the top of the nub. You know, you don't really see groves of tamarack like this, western larch, very much. You know, this collection of them, and then their canopies are still really good. Tamarack generally have issues with dwarf mistletoe, but these trees look good, totally climbable, mission complete. And there's cones, right? I forgot to say that. There's cones. So, congratulations, we've completed the mission, but we now have a new mission of getting back out here with the gear. And I need to find somebody to quest with me. It's not a solo mission. But here you are. I'll take you for a walk through the grove. I just want to tie up all the Forest Service bits, because this is kind of a weird hodgepodge video, but you know, I want to quit my job a lot of the time, but then I sit here and I realize that the reason why I'm able to do this on my day off is my job. And that I probably would be of greater value at large doing my job that I'm in than going private or doing something different. So I could suck it up, okay, people? I just want people to know and understand more fully, you know, what it is that we do and what it is that we go through. Because I think that not a lot of people realize that, like, you know, what's going on now is we're trying to trim the fat, right, from the evil federal government, you know. But from where I'm at and what's going on within my life, you know, they're trying to trim the fat from a starving horse. Like, there's no fat to trim. You know, like, all of my gear is from the 1990s. Shout out to Glenda. Everything says Glenda. She still lives in the town of where I'm at, and I'm someday gonna meet her. She was a very small-framed person, is what I gather. But the point is we're using old gear, you know, or we just don't have gear. We don't have the manpower to do what we need to do. And I think that all of us are just incredibly overwhelmed. You know, there ain't no fat to trim. Where the fraud is exactly, I am also not sure. I can only speak from where I stand, so that's it. This is a bit of a side note. Back to the scion thing, right? What I'm trying to do is essentially create a collection of material that is low elevation, right? And I'm getting the cones so you can run trials on the seedlings. And ideally, while I'm up there getting the cones, I can snag the scion, right? You're already up there. The problem that I'm having is that you need a place to put the scion. And that's where the mission's taking a real stall, because I need money, right? In a traditional orchard establishment, what they would do is plant seedlings, wait till the seedlings are old enough, then they would graft the scion, and then wait for those trees to then begin to put off seed. But I think there might be a way to graft scion onto older trees. You have less success, so you would need to just graft a lot, right? But then the amount of time that you have to wait to get to the seed part would be a lot less. And I think I have a good location for it. I found the roots, my friends. I just need money to pay for it. And you know, that's the thing that I just don't have an exuberant amount of, is money. You know, and if I continue to save, I think I could do it in 2 years at the rate that I save. But still, 2 years is 2 years. Time is of the essence, and so that's one of the things that's continually on my mind. And trying to just figure out how to get a shitload of money from somewhere. Anyways, this is a very beautiful place. I love this. Has been a really good trek. Thank you for being here. I'm walking around thinking to myself, man, the only thing that would make this day better is if I found a horn. Sure as shit! Look at this, baby! This is a big boy. This is a big boy. This is my biggest elk shed. Thank God. Holy fuck. Oh. That's a big guy. He's girthy. Hell yeah, you guys. Now I gotta carry this bitch all the way out.